It reminded me of Ed Ruscha's work, Every Building on the Sunset Strip, which he created in 1966, where he essentially documented the whole of the Sunset Strip on both sides and stitched the whole lot together, or spliced it manually together, printed every image, cut it up, stuck it together. And I'd always loved that project, and there's something about it that is kind of homemade and pretty basic, but also kind of epic in its scale. And reading about him creating that work intrigued me even more, because he spent so much time trying to work out how to do it and failing and giving up and trying again. And I decided at some point that I wanted to give it a go and use this sort of style to document this incredible, famous road. The other reason that Old Kent Road really fascinated me was the fact that it's about to change beyond recognition. So I don't know how many of you know the road or the area particularly well, but there's a potential Bakerloo line extension which would go from Elephant and Castle to New Cross, and it would have 3 or 4 stations along the Old Kent Road, and that's really injected a lot of money into the area, and there's a whole debate about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and but either way it's interesting. A lot of people think it's just going to destroy the area because it's money and it will be expensive housing and it will just take people away from the area who grew up there, who won't be able to afford to live there anymore. A lot of people think it's great because it's a dilapidated area and it had not had a lot of investment. Either way, depends where you stand on that, but I think everyone is kind of looking for a middle way where there's development but it doesn't destroy the character of the area. Anyway, I'll try and not go on too long. So basically I decided to get going on shooting and did a lot of testing. The way Ed Ruscha did it was on the back of a truck. And I thought about other ways of doing it, from the bus, which goes up and down, and obviously it's quite nice and easy to look out the side of when you're elevated, which is quite nice. Walking, I thought maybe was a good idea, tested that out. But really, I think to get the process of the journey up and down the road, the best way really was from a car or a truck. So what we ended up doing was using a truck, because after thinking about it for a long time, the solution had already been used once and it worked really well. We did a few tests. I couldn't sit on the back of the truck as Ed Ruscha did, because he essentially just sat on a chair on the back of a truck. I think that's illegal. We would have been arrested. So what we did was we put the camera through the sunroof, and we put a remote coming down to me, put it sideways, nice wide lens, and just drove around basically shooting, going up and down. There was a lot of testing, but essentially the whole thing was shot in a couple of hours on a Sunday morning. So it didn't take very long to shoot. Most of it was the planning and the logistics behind the whole thing. So what we ended up with was hundreds and hundreds of photos. The other problems really were sort of buses and how quickly to drive and avoid all sorts of other things that would block the buildings and that sort of thing. But again, you'll see, if you look at the whole, let me try and use this pointer. So if you look over on the whole length on the wall here, you'll see little sections of buses and trucks and things like that. And actually that sort of, I know I was trying to avoid that for aesthetic reasons, I guess, but actually that's the character of the road, and that's kind of interesting. And it captures a moment in time. So I kind of had the same issues in a digital way that Rusha had in a physical way, where he was cutting up prints and trying to fit them together. I spent the best part of 2 weeks splicing up digital images in Photoshop and having to deal with file sizes and all sorts of things to cut them together. The whole length on the wall over there, essentially every image that was taken is cut up and then stuck together. And the idea really was to do it in quite an abstract way rather than creating a realistic panorama. So the other bits that we've got in the gallery, which basically came about through looking at all the images that have been created and trying to find meaning and beauty, I guess, in the other areas that sort of came about. So in the other room, we've got some quadriptychs, which basically take 4 images that were shot in a row, nicely straightened up and sorted out a bit better than in the whole length, and just show them next to each other essentially. But obviously they're the nice, clean ones that happen to happen. There's certain buildings that look amazing, but they happen to have a truck in front of them and it didn't work. So I guess the way this project is kind of different to other projects is there wasn't really any, let's stand here and get the perfect light and wait for the truck to move and all that. Is sort of, it happened, and if it didn't happen, then it didn't happen. The other thing we've got over here, which let me point to that. Sorry. The other thing we've got over here is a video which shows every image running through in order, kind of like a time lapse, I guess. Which feel free to try and play that in a bit. And then behind me, either side, we've got every image that was taken on the north side and every image that was taken on the south side, all in one square. And it's kind of like a contact sheet. If any of you shot film, it just shows every single image in order, essentially. And when you look at this, you can kind of see how those quadriptychs and triptychs came together. And it just kind of jump out when you look at the whole that's kind of it, I think. Guess we're going to have some questions at the end if anyone's interested. Yeah, that's it really.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. Sorry, let me put the screen up again. Thanks for this. Yeah, if you guys have any questions now, we can ask Matthew whatever you want. Either remember to unmute your microphone, or you can use this bar below to write a question if you want. Anyone? I know it's terrifying to ask a question in a virtual gallery, but
yeah. Could I ask one?
Yeah, sure. Luke. Yeah, go for it.
Luke, could I ask? Yeah. So you mentioned that Ed Ruscha was one of your references, and something he does, or he did a lot, was aerial photography as well. And I was just interested, did you consider looking at things, from the sky downwards as well to show a bit of the scale of it, or was that ever something you considered as part of the process?
Thanks. Good question. Not really. I think I like the idea of that being on street level sort of feeling of being involved in the hustle and bustle and being in amongst the buses and seeing it all happen in front of you. I have taken aerial images of Old Kent Road, and it is quite interesting because obviously looking down the whole length is quite fascinating. Yeah, I think it gives you a different type of feeling. Yeah, I guess I didn't. It wasn't something I actually considered. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that Ed Ruscha did much aerial stuff. I don't know. You'll have to send me a link.
Yeah, well, it's in the when we're going to get back outside again. He's got some stuff in the Tate Modern, which is nice. But it'd be cool to see those pictures you did as well.
Yeah.
I think Michelle asked, what kit did you use in terms of how did you? I think she meant like technically, how did you shoot this?
I just meant like, did you need any special kit? Like,
okay,
obviously, if you were in a truck, I don't know if you had like a specific tripod or anything.
Yeah. So logistically, essentially, the issues were getting the shutter speed right, so that because you're driving past and looking across at something, you need a pretty fast shutter speed, or you need to drive really slowly, or a combination of the two. So it was getting that right. We set up a remote from the truck so that I could sit in the passenger seat and just shoot with the remote. Logistically, that was the challenge that came about with that was the right speed of the card. So you're trying to shoot quite quickly to try and not miss anything, and then the card starts buffering or something, and all sorts of issues like that. But yeah, essentially we set up a tripod in the stairwell, in the footwell, which I sort of held down with my, just try and put all my weight holding down the center pole of the tripod to sort of try and keep it as steady as possible. Because every time you hit a bump or something, if that happens to be when you shoot, could mess things up. But likewise, I just set up a pretty fast shutter speed to try and avoid those issues. And then the camera and lens was just a digital SLR and a 17mm shift lens, which means that you can shoot it portrait to get a lot of height, to try and get the tops of every building. I don't think there was many buildings that we missed the top of. But what I'd quite like to do in the future is redo this whole thing once some of the developments happened. But that's not really going to be viable to get the tops of those buildings in, because most buildings down the Old Kent Road at the moment are about sort of 5 or 6 stories max. And most of the developments proposed are sort of 30 stories, something like that. So it's going to look very different. And I guess that's kind of interesting that you won't see the tops of them when I do it again, but I might have to rethink it.
Yeah, I think it really highlights how much that is going to affect the way the road looks. It would be really interesting if you do it again in a few years. Or yeah. If anyone has any other questions, otherwise we can.
Can I be greedy and ask another one?
No, Luke. No, I'm joking. Of course. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned kind of there's a lot of different views on the development, about whether it's good or bad. What's your personal view about it, if you're prepared to say in public?
Politics. I think I agree with the whole middle way sort of thing. It's great that they're building affordable housing, but the government really needs to make sure that the affordable housing is built. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it needs to be controlled, and you hope that the government and the mayor will do that. But yeah, it's very political. It depends who you talk to, and some people are really far one way, some people are really far the other. But I think my opinion is it's great that some investment is coming. It's great that they're going to put some actual transport links into South London, which would be amazing. Although I think there was debate over the fact that they might cancel the Bakerloo line extension now that I think TfL was losing about £20 million a day during the peak of the virus. So it could be that it gets axed, but that would also be interesting because they've already approved a lot of housing, and if they don't put in any infrastructure, it's not going to end very well. So it's an intriguing area.
Okay. Thanks, Matthew. Shall we move to the next room? So Agnese can start with her presentation. And yes, I can see you. Well, I'm sure you're around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think I mentioned it before just to one person, but if you right click with your mouse on an image, you can actually see it full screen. So if you're interested in seeing like something bigger, just right click on the image, and you will see on certain image there is a little shopping basket. Those are the images that can be purchased on the print shop. You can just follow the link that is underneath each image. Yes. Oh, you're here. Okay. Yeah. I'll let you speak.
Should I quickly? Hello.
Yeah, I can move the video around for you if you want, so you don't have to think about that. I can put it
Yeah,
like
that'd be great. Yeah.
somewhere like here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But give me one less thing to do. Yeah.
Okay.
So hello everyone. I'm Agnese, for those who don't know me. I'm a urban photographer, and I am interested in taking photos of places that change and evolve. And I'm particularly interested in places in the overlooked and places that can easily pass unnoticed in our everyday. So after doing a project about the disused Victorian toilet, I decided to take pictures of the multi-storey car park, because at the time when they were either demolished or converting to.
Sorry, Agnese, we can't really hear. We can't hear you really well. We can't hear you really well. Do you wanna try to? It's really laggy. It's really laggy. Do you wanna try to enter the room again, maybe? Do you want to try to enter the room again? Sometimes it happens that the stream goes bad for one reason or another.
Okay, yeah. So
Oh,
shall
actually,
I go out and then,
no, we can hear you well now.
You mean completely out and then relog in?
We can hear you well now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go
Perfect.
on. Sorry.
Okay. So, yeah, I was saying that after doing a project about the disused Victorian toilet, I decided to take pictures of the multi-storey car park, because it was at the time when they were demolishing them or they were converting in other purposes, like London Fashion Week or Bold Tendencies, Frank Campari Bar or mini golf and alfresco dining. But then on the other hand, in the States, Herzog de Meurer, they designed a car park that incorporates the car park itself with retail space and dining. And I think everybody it's the image. Let me just wait, the one just on the back of you, yeah, on the back of me, yeah, this one here. So the project started 4 years ago, and it's still ongoing. So when I started, I didn't have an idea of a precise idea of what I had to do or how I had to approach this. But then the more I was taking photos and reading, researching, and looking at all the photographers' work, the more I understood that I didn't want to do a nostalgic recording of all the car park that they might or might not disappear, but I just wanted to celebrate their beauty, because I found them really interesting, really beautiful, but even if they still keep a sort of dark side. And that's why I also take them at night or like just at dusk, because it's my favorite time of the day, and it's a very magical atmosphere, but also got a bit of a eerie and dark side. So there was a book by Simon Henley, I don't know if it's here tonight, The Architecture of Parking, that was really useful and really made me understood the typology of the car park from an architectural point of view. And it also shows the car park as a distinct building, which is different than a warehouse or an office, but it's just like a building itself. Also in the book there was a really amazing photographic essay by Subar, which is a photographer I really admire, and she finds beauty in the structures and the infrastructures. There are other photographers that influence me. One of them is Ruth Blest Luxemburg, who finds beauty in the dark corners of the urban landscape, and also Dan Holsworth, who explores car park, shopping center, and other known places from a more anthropological point of view. What I really like of the car park is the really basic structure that they have, like this one in Shoreditch. Which it's got like it's like shelves on different levels, and it's really raw and basic, and it looks like a bit like a skeleton of a building. And it reminds me a bit the buildings I see back home in the south of Italy. There's a unfinished building where you can only see like a bare concrete shell. In other car park, I was more interested in, rather than the whole building, I was interested in the details, like the aperture, like this, the opening, where you can see through the inside, or like the pattern of the different materiality, like the bricks and the concrete, like this one in Peckham. And then there is, if we go in the other room, there is this one. Let's go here. So this is Welbeck Street, which is which was near Oxford Circus on the back of Debenhams, and it's got this very decorative pattern, which is not just a geometrical decorative pattern, but I think it's also structural. Sadly, this structure has been demolished recently to make way to a hotel, despite all the protests and petition that they happened. I mean, the council just decided to demolish. Then on this side, this on the back of me, they all have this kind of spiral ramp, and when I see a spiral ramp, I always think about the Guggenheim Museum in New York. But actually, Frank Gehry was influenced by the continuous landscape of the spiral ramp for in the museum. And the one in the center, this one here, is apparently the first multi-storey car park in London. In fact, it still looks a bit like an office building, with the windows. It's a little bit different. And then here on the other wall, we have Saffron Hill, which it's also really interesting because it looks a bit like a temporary building, and even when I went there to photograph, there were like flickering light inside, so it was even more precarious. And there are some more car park that I photographed, both old and new, and but the project is still ongoing. So if you have any suggestion of places that I should visit, please let me know. And also, I wanted to thank Henry, Francesco, and Luca for their hard work in organizing this, and for inviting me to take part, because it was a really good opportunity for me to work on these pictures and put them together and take some new ones. So thank you so much for this.
Thank.
And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, just let me know.
Yeah, thank you, Agnese, for your presentation. Beautiful photos. If anyone, if anyone has a question.
Can I? Sorry. You look also took some really nice pictures of car park.
Sorry, what did you say? I couldn't hear really well.
Oh, you also took some really good photos of car parks.
Yeah, actually, that's true. I kind of have had the idea. I think I was inspired by the Welbeck Street car park. I think similarly as you, because it was quite a big thing in London when they decided to knock it down. And there is definitely some nice car parks around London and outside London. Yeah. And does anyone has any question now? You can also write it down in the space below. Otherwise, I'm gonna ask one question.
Yeah, there's
Anyone? No. Okay. No, I just wanted to ask you, like, I saw you did like with the, I think with the Victorian toilets, you did a sort of typology, and even with this project, I assume you like. I cannot hear you really well. You cannot hear me really well.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, now I can see you. Yeah, now I can hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes it comes and goes. It's a bit the joy of having a virtual exhibition, you know. No, I just wanted to ask you, like, do you always sort of?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you always sort of choose to do project following like a typology? You always sort of pick a subject and then follow it, and why do you like to do that kind of project? Agnese, sorry, I'm just gonna try to cancel
I
your.
really like the working series in general. Yeah.
I'm just gonna try to cancel your to take off your video because the sound was really bad. So maybe it's because the video is slowing down things. But yeah, please go on.
Okay, yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying I really like the working series in general. But then at the same time, so for the more architectural work, I think quite like when trying to do them quite similar in a way that you can see the typology and the difference and the similarities of all of them. But then at the same time, sometimes I don't want to make it a little bit too boring and too rigid. I think it depends on the project, but yeah, in general, on the overall, yeah, I quite like working on a series and on a specific typology. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you got any car parks that you plan to photograph soon, or plan to visit? I don't know, other countries to photograph any car parks?
No, I mean, there's one here. The one in the snow here was in Vienna. I mean, I just happened to be there, so I took some pictures there of different car parks. I'm sure in the States there are like some really amazing one. I mean, I'm not sure. I've seen some photos of some car parks in the States that are really amazing, and and also in Germany and France there are some interesting ones. But I think there are some, it's good to concentrate close by before exploring farther ventures. Yeah. There are many car parks in London. I mean, still that I need to visit. So yeah, I'll do those first.
Thanks. I think Luke has a question. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a question. So this is something probably all photographers in my room can relate to. Is I'm often finding myself in car parks without a car, kind of walking through car parks to get a vantage point and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the time, you come across people doing all these things that maybe you wouldn't expect in a car park. I'm interested in kind of, what kind of experiences have you had of the different ways that people use car parks other than parking their cars? And also, is that something you've tried to document? So kind of the almost like social space aspect of it, as well as just the architectural typology?
I usually all this, I quite like to take the pictures from the street view, similar to what Matthew was saying. More because it's what everyone can see, and sometimes we don't notice, we don't pay attention. So then I don't really go inside. Especially, I wouldn't go there at night in some of them by myself. So yeah, I don't really, from street level, you don't really see sort of different uses for that. But yeah, there are lots of movies where there are scenes of chasing or deals and different activities going on in car parks. So yeah, that's interesting. The one in Miami, I walked around, like lots of pictures, both during the day and during the evening. And yeah, it's very spectacular and also you got amazing views through. And there were lots of people taking selfies there. So yeah, yeah, that was quite a nice one to go.
Yeah, I think it's one of the, or at least that I can think of, is one of the only like contemporary car park that is really famous in terms of its architecture. I can't really think of. Also because I think we're trying to live in a greener world a bit, and that the importance of the car is sort of fading a bit, because we all know, living in London, that that's not really true. But yeah. Does anyone have?
Yeah, no, of course not.
Sorry.
They now tend to put them underground. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone, if anyone has any other question? Otherwise, I'm just gonna say. Oh yeah, Michelle asked, what time do you take the photos? Early in the evening or late in the morning? Is there like a methodology behind it?
Evening person. I'm more an evening person. Now, for this one, I went in the evening, so just after sunset and the dusk time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And actually, some of them I took them recently, which was amazing because there were many people around, many cars. So it's it seems like it's morning, but yeah, it's evening. Yeah.
And also Matthew, I think, has a question.
Yes, I'd be interested to know what you think about the listing of car parks. So car parks are obviously built as a sort of functional piece of architecture, but some of them rise to greater things like Welbeck Street. So I'd be interested to know what you think about whether they should be listed or whether they're as purely functional and they're sort of disposable pieces of architecture. Yeah,
well, in general, I'm for recycling and reusing. And I mean, I understand that maybe in the center of London you don't need a car park like the one in Welbeck Street. But it was a real shame to seeing disappear. So I think, I think some of them they should be definitely listed, and I think there are quite a few Brutalist buildings that they've been listed for their character, really. But even if they're ugly, they're like that, the sort of ugly beauty. But I mean, if the function is not there anymore, then I don't see why they cannot be readapted, like the one in Peckham, for example, that's been converted into workspace. Then I don't know enough in terms of how easy it is to do this. And how economical it is to do this. But yeah, it's a shame to see them going. Yeah. So yeah, they should consider listing or saving them. Well, I mean, that's really the council and the government that should look into that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about before today about the reuse of car parks. That's quite interesting that some have been turned into other. I guess I hadn't really thought about it, but reusing them is actually quite a green solution, and also we get to keep some interesting architecture, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Agnese.
Yeah, there was a comment I saw from there was a video of massive attack.
Oh yeah, Angel. Yeah, I think it was.
Someone has said that there was a video of massive attack. That's really good suggestion. I need to look at that.
Yeah, I think the whole video is set in like a car park or something like that. Yeah. Any other question? If not, so I'm just gonna quickly say the gallery is gonna be. We are gonna put a link on our websites, and it will be accessible for the whole week. If you wanna come back in, or if you wanna tell anyone to come in to see the work of Agnese and Matthew, please do so. We are gonna be in here for a bit more with the photographer. If you wanna stick around and just ask whatever, just feel free. And yeah, in general, just thanks a lot for coming. Thanks to the photographer. This is our last for now, obviously, for London Festival of Architecture. For the program is the last private view we are doing. We will certainly do some more events in the future, and just follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Mass Collective, to have all the news and all the events we are gonna do. And yeah, for now, just thanks for being here. Thanks, photographers, and have a nice evening.